Hello, and welcome to Building High Performance Cultures. It's a weekly series where we talk to leaders of top organizations about how they use their culture as competitive advantage. I'm Marty Parker, President and Chief Executive Officer of Waterstone Human Capital, and my guest today is Sean O'Brien, President and Chief Executive Officer of Reliance Home Comfort. Sean, welcome.
Hey, Marty, how are you? And welcome to all your viewers and listeners.
Well, listen, we're delighted to have you. Sean is a little bit of background, but only a brief amount. First of all, Sean is not only a Canada's Most Admired CEO winner, which he was in the mid-market category in 2016, been a great contributor to our Board of Governors since then, but Reliance is also a two-time winner of the Canada's Most Admired Corporate Cultures Award in 2016 originally, and then again, most recently in 2019, which is an incredible achievement. But Sean, for those who may not be, certainly a lot of people will be, but may not be as familiar with Reliance Home Comfort, why don't you talk a little bit about the company and the culture, and even going back to, not that many years ago, but I guess it was 2013 when you started as the Chief Executive Officer.
February, yeah.
You bet.
Perfect. Well, so Reliance is a very interesting business. We are a home service provider business. We take care of people's comforts in their homes. We started over 60 years ago installing water heaters, and we've evolved through the years. We've evolved. We now are North America's largest water heater company in terms of renting water heaters to our customers. We have 1.9 million customers. And we're also the leader in replacing HVAC equipment in our customers' homes. Recently, we've launched plumbing services, electrical services, and home automation services. It really is about providing comfort to our customers in their homes or places of work. And when you think about what we've done over the years, it is an interesting business. When I joined in 2013, we were about a $400 million business. We're budgeting in 2020 to be just a little over $900 million in revenue. We've expanded into provinces. We've expanded into markets. You heard me talk about our products offering. We've expanded our product offerings, and we've also entered into the U.S. as well. It is exciting because at the end of the day, we are a service business. We have 2,400 team members focused on taking care of customers. And it's really about making sure that we have highly engaged team members focused on some key deliverables. And the underlying principle is ensuring we deliver an outstanding customer experience and take care of our customers.
Sean, it wasn't so in 2013. You weren't certainly, you were less than half the size from a revenue perspective. Talk a little bit about the business, which was a very healthy business that you inherited, with a slightly different culture than where it is today. And talk about kind of that culture and performance journey, if you will. I know we were fortunate enough to be there a little bit with you through that. So maybe take us back to 2013, what you found, what you assessed, and maybe what you did, and what were those early kind of steps forward on that kind of cultural performance journey.
Yeah, great. So it's interesting. In the marketing world, they talk about a white space somewhere that's untouched. It's yours. You can deliver a strong message into that area where the consumers can really relate to. So going back when I was talking to, at the time we were owned by a company called the Linda Capital Partners. And when they approached me about joining the organization, I'd met with them in New York City. I flew home, and that weekend I was at a Christmas party, a holiday party. And I remember talking to people at this party, and I kept saying, hey, where do you rent your water heater from? And most people could give me a definitive answer, Reliance or someone else. Okay. And then I asked the question, if your furnace broke down tonight, who would you call? And no one could give me an answer. And that's when I knew there was something special, because through my time dealing with Linda and talking to some of the leadership team and some of the team members, I remember one day I was at a gas station and I approached a Reliance team member. I wasn't even working here. I was just in talks about joining. And I engaged in this conversation with this gentleman. I think his name was Jeff Baca. And we engaged in this conversation, and I thought, wow, there's something special about this place. So when I joined, I knew the organization was very proud of what they did. They were proud to be Reliance team members. They were really focused on giving good service, and it was a real strong family atmosphere. So when I joined, through my previous experiences, which we've worked, I've worked with Waterstone before in a previous life at another organization, which was also a two-time winner of Canada's Most Admired. Um, I engaged with Waterstone to come in and do what we call a cultural assessment. Right, just let me understand what kind of culture we have. I think I know, but I'd love to have someone come in and tell me what are the key drivers in this business and what's the foundation. Because as you've always said, Marty, every business has a culture. Every business has. And it's to determine, is it the right culture for what you're trying to achieve as an organization? And my mandate, as you know, through my life, I love to grow businesses. Right? If I was on a sporting team, I'd be on the offensive side, not the defense. Let's score a lot of points, and we'll worry about the goals later. But let's just rank up some points. And so engaging with Waterstone, you were able to actually map out, help us understand what were the key foundational pieces that we'd want to cherish and protect and nurture and grow. And then also some of the things that were in flux, right? Where we're starting to see the change occurring, right? And then ultimately some tools that we should focus on to really help speed up this cultural change for us. And if you think about it, off the top of my head, I remember, the culture when I joined was friendly, family, service, customer, comfortable, something along those lines.
Right.
And then when you came back in, almost 2 years later,
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years later, it was fast-paced, growth-orientated, reward recognition, friendly. I still like this place. I feel friendly, but we're moving. We're getting after things. And it's not for everybody. It really isn't. But I think part of it is knowing what you're getting into and aligning that. So we actually, one of the founding things we did is, when I joined at the time, we had 10 values. And you've heard me talk about, we had 10 values this organization had. So the first couple months, I would walk around and talk to everybody. I'd be in the branch in Windsor, I'd be in a branch in Winnipeg, in Burlington, and I'd say, hey, do you know our values? And people go, yeah, we have 10 values. I'd say, oh, that's awesome. Can you tell me them? And they go, oh, no, I couldn't. And I thought, well, that was really interesting to me. Some people could give me 3. Most people could give me the 10th value, which was have fun. And that's when I realized, as you know, Marty, I love simplicity. I think there's so much power in being able to simplify complexity, right? So I always like to keep things at grade 5 level. What's a grade 5 level as a baseline? So we went out, and I do it for me, not for anyone else. I do it so I can remember what we're talking about. But we went out and we formed 4 guiding principles. We created a mission statement, or what we call our purpose statement. And it was about delivering comfort, allowing customers to be comfortable in their homes, right? Providing hot water, warm air, cool air. It was really a simple thing. It's about delivering comfort, the destination of choice. The other thing was we created 4 guiding principles. And we did not, when we talk about them, we don't do the, hey, here's a guiding principle and this is what it means. I actually want you to determine what you think it means. Right? And they're so simple. So the 4, we actually now have 5. We've added one, but the 4 were drive to win. It's pretty straightforward, right? Drive, win, motion, action, get after, right? Better is better, which is simply, if I'm good today, how can I be better tomorrow? It's about continuously improving. Delivering an outstanding customer experience. Again, straightforward. And I always like to use great simple examples. If that was your mom, or if that was your dad, or if we were going to your house, was the service the way you'd want it? Real basic stuff, right? And the last one we developed was what we call proud to be Reliance. And that encompassed, wearing your sweatshirt, Reliance everywhere, right? I have toques on, I'm wearing my colors all the time. It was about giving back to the communities where we live and work. It was about making sure we're a safe place to work, both physically, but also a safe from no one's going to judge me, no harassment, none of that kind of stuff. And so recently we added in our fifth guiding principle, which is work safe, be healthy. So we have five because we really wanted to bring that up and let people understand it is core to what we're trying to do. And I think that when we step back, and I've gone back to the presentations that Waterstone created in terms of the assessment tools and where we've changed and how we've evolved, and it is amazing. We kept we kept the core things that made us special, and then we elevated the things we needed to get after as an organization. And I'm really proud about what we've done as an organization. Keep it simple. Try to eliminate hierarchies. We're pretty lean at the top. We don't have lots of. It's very close. We created a general manager's model where a GM owns everything to do in their branch, the revenue piece, the operational execution, the team member engagement. Really try to keep it lean, and that's sort of I like to have my hands on, not on the as a micromanager, but about evaluating, are we doing the right things? Are the messages that come from HR, are they getting down to Jeff Baca on the truck? Are the messages that come from sales getting all the way out to Scott Benzel? Right? Like it's really, really simple things, and it becomes very powerful.
This is a bit of a story that stands out because most culture change, which takes time, is driven because it has to. You know, a number of organizations now, a number of us are going through an immense change because of what's happening external to our businesses, but that we're having to address. And so, you know, if you're in turmoil, culture tends to change, but you weren't. You're in a unique circumstance where you had a healthy business with controlled growth, with happy employees, with not a lot of turnover. So what you did, in many respects, was risky, in that you basically lit a fuse, woke an organization up, and there's always risk that may not translate into growth,
right,
into success.
Right.
So when you look back now, and I think obviously core values, obviously making kind of that transition, which you didn't, I think, force day one. What do you look back on and say, these are the 2 or 3 things that we did? I'm sure guiding principles is one of them, that made the difference in ensuring that change was lasting, because clearly it has been lasting.
Yeah, it's great. I think of 2 things. One, we spent a disproportionate amount of time communicating, right? Just really, and nothing fancy, but just communicating what we're trying to do, the why. Let everyone know it's not a scary place we're going. Let everyone understand the benefits and what we were trying to accomplish as an organization. And we also, it was a book you referenced to me ages ago called Confidence. And we also realized that as an organization, you can talk about things, right? But humans like to see things. We love to touch things. We love to smell things. And what we did is we spent some time really working on giving back to the organization to support what we're trying to do. So you know, simply put, we were private equity. We were midway through, 2/3 of the way through the ownership of our. It was an infrastructure equity, so it was a 10-year hold. We were midway, 2/3 of the way through their ownership position, and usually most of these firms wouldn't spend the money; they prefer to, you know, keep it as cash for themselves and distributions. But Alinda supported what we were doing because they could see early victories. I remember my first meeting I had, it was February 3rd, I think it was, at the a hotel in Mississauga, the Meadowvale Delta, I think at the time. And it was the leadership team, so the top 28 leaders of the business. And I I gave a presentation to who I am and what drives me and my family and all that stuff. But I really talked about the value of double digit growth, the intangible things you get when you're growing a business. And it's stuff that's not measured on a P&L. It's stuff like giving back to the communities. It's stuff about hiring great people. It's stuff about making investments back into the business. And I remember the audience, they all looked at me like I was crazy, right? Because here's a business that was steady Eddie, growing year over year, life was good. And now this guy shows up and he wants to grow at double digit rates. And I remember the first month we hit double digits. We hit 10% in a month. I remember getting a call from the guys in the US, Linda, and they were just over the moon. They supported what we were doing. They really understood. So going back to that confidence play, it was about making investments back into the business. You know, like at the corporate office, we went all open concept, right? And you've seen it was a significant change. No one has offices. Everyone has cubicles, bright, airy, cool, all that kind of stuff. New vehicles, new uniforms, training for our front line, new technology for our front line. So now people can sort of go, okay, I get what this guy's talking about. He said we're going to do some things. We're actually doing these things, and now I'm seeing some benefits. In 2013, we had 1,064 team members. And as I said, we're just about 2,400 team members right now. And it's just, and I really think there's a correlation between if you communicate so everyone understands what we do, where we go, what we have to execute on, my role in the big picture, my value in the big picture, you're unstoppable, right?
Give us a couple of examples. You know, if there's someone listening out there, Sean, and saying, great, I mean, this is an era of, right now of having to communicate so much, but how exactly did you do it? Certainly frequency would have been big, but there were probably some things you did that you look back on and say, I'm glad we created that. I remember kind of the office of the CEO.
Right, the office, yeah.
Talk about a couple of those things and what
Right.
you practically, tactically did.
Okay, so first and foremost, we launched what we call the Office of the President, and
Yeah.
there's a group that is available from 6 a.m. in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, and on any high touch, any Better Business Bureau type question, because we're in the consumer field, social media complaint, reach out to anyone who's not happy with the service we're providing. This group gets involved. So if you posted something on social media that said, hey, Reliance has done something horrible to me, we'll get back to you within about 5 minutes and say, hey, Marty, how do we get in contact? I want to understand how we fix your problem. And that was, I was really bullish on that one because I really think that speaks to what we're doing as an organization. And that team was empowered to do whatever they needed to do within reason to take care of you, right? That's pretty powerful, number one. Number two is I'm a firm believer is the old go see, right? Get out and I experienced early on in my career when I was at Pure Later. I started my career in the field, and then I moved to corporate office as a managing director there. And you immediately became insulated from reality. Immediately, right? Because you're not in the day to day. You don't feel the bullets flying over your head, all that kind of stuff. And what I realized is by getting out into the field as much as possible, whether that's ride-alongs once a month, sitting in call centers, walking the branches, going to town halls, going to managers' meetings, popping by and having lunch, you really get a measurement, unfiltered measurement of what's going on, what's being communicated, or what's being perceived or received. That was really important. And now the beautiful thing about it is now the executive team's out in the field all the time. Everyone's out in the field because it's more fun, right? You're out where the action is, kind of thing. So it was opening up the office of the president. It was getting out and creating this get out into the field kind of mentality, the touch and feel. You know, we did other simple things like, chat with Sean. Let's chat. So if anyone at any time wants to have a chat, um, they just connect with me. And it's actually, it's amazing now with this coronavirus situation. People are bypassing that and just emailing me, which is wonderful. Like it really is. And people are dealing with anxiety and nervousness and the unknown and question marks. And I don't mind them. I love when they email, hey Sean, do you think this is right? What do you think about this? How do you think about this? And I think it really helps us form what we're doing as an organization. I'm a firm believer that everyone puts their pants on the same way every morning. Uh, we're all, doesn't matter what role it is, you're all as important as everyone else. People always say, well, compensation is different. Yeah, compensation is based on risk. But at the end of the day, we're all the same. We all are trying to do the right things to take care of our customers, take care of each other. And if we worry about those inputs, the outputs automatically follow.
If there's a chief executive officer, a CHRO, chief people officer out there, and they're sitting on the fence about including culture as one of their key measurements. You've been a big proponent of not only doing it once, but going back and looking at your culture. And not only that, quite practically feeling it, assessing it personally, upfront, one-on-one, just as you were discussing. But what would you tell them about the importance of measuring culture?
Oh, I think it's critical. And when you think about it, some of the one of the challenge you have on measuring culture is sometimes it's annually or semi-annually with some sort of survey or something, right? And so we do our annual surveys, and we actually create action plans and drive through them and measure and all those things. And historically, Marty, in the last, so I've been here for 7 years. Our engagement survey participation rate has gone from the 70s up almost to 99%. Right. And it's not pay, you're not pay. We really want to hear what you have to say. Right. But there's some other things that are unofficial measurements of culture. And what I mean by that is I believe that culture is an ingredient, a key ingredient when you're cooking something. Right? If we're making a stew, right? This is a key ingredient to really make this great tasting stew. And it's critical. And you can say, well, Sean, well, then what do you measure? Like, what are you measuring then? And there's a bunch of different things we measure. Health and safety results on a daily basis, our driving behavior on a daily basis, our net promoter score, which I'll tell you, our net promoter score in 2013 was 38. It is 72 right now.
Yeah, that's unheard of.
Right? But that's a measurement of culture.
Yep.
It clearly is. Our daily activity, whether it's sales activity, our call responsive rates, like there's a bunch of key measurements for us that we measure. Some could say, hey, they're not tied right to, they're an output of culture. Right? They are truly, truly, truly an output of culture. And we stay pretty focused on making sure we're on top of those things. And if there's fluxes, you can easily go back and take a look at, okay, what's going on in the region, what's going on with a specific manager, what's going on with a specific supervisor, how can we help? Is it a communication? Where can we go? But it's critical. And I would say that when to a CEO or a chief a people officer, if you're going to make this step and say, let's spend some time on thinking about our culture, I'd encourage you to. It is a game changer. It truly, truly is. I think it's our competitive advantage. And what I mean by that is, this is, I don't want to sound arrogant or bold or naive, but we put on our Reliance Net, our internal team member website, our entire strategy plan is there. And if someone wanted to download it and walk over to our biggest competitors tomorrow, they could. But the difference is, I'm 100% confident that my competitors don't have the same kind of culture we have. And it goes back to being able to execute on a plan, understanding our roles in the plan, taking enjoyment in the plan, celebrating in the plan, winning in all the things that make up for a very powerful organization. So,
Well said. Now, Sean, Reliance has gone through a lot of growth.
mm,
In the last number of years, some of that growth has come through acquisition. And so, how do you ensure that the acquisitions that you make fit or integrate into the culture? I mean, it's one thing to talk about recruiting for fit. We know that. We know how challenging that can be. But when you're talking about, in a case of an acquisition, bringing in an entire business, and it might be in a new geography like the United States, how do you ensure that that fits?
great question. So, the best example I have is when we bought Reliable heating and plumbing in Atlanta. Great business. We love the business. At the time, they were about a $50 million a year business. And we met with the owner, Mr. Jape, Dan Jape, lovely guy. And this was his legacy. Like, he built this business over 30 plus years. His kid worked there, his wife worked there. This was his legacy. And, through our due diligence, you meet with managers, you actually start to probe, you start to see, what do you measure? What do you look for? It's really easy to start to assess, are there certain measurements that we do as an organization that mirror what they do? But the key for us was this. He was sort of on the fence. Do I let go of my legacy? What do I do? We invited him to our annual summit meeting, which I think you've attended. You spoke at, actually. We invited him, his number 2 and number 3 in charge of the business, to come up to be our guest and sit through our 2-day event as you're one of our team members. And then at that point, he and his team could actually see what we're all about. He could actually mingle with our people, participate with our people, listen to our speakers, celebrate when we acknowledged our President's Club and President Awards winners, our branch of the year, understand what our strategy was. And that was a game changer for us. It was a true game changer. I'm a big believer is when people join organizations, you usually lose them for 2 reasons. One, they heard the wrong expectation of your organization, or they created their own wrong expectation of the organization. So when we go out and look at acquiring a business, we actually spend a lot of time to make sure that culturally, leadership style is what we're looking for. It's very important to us because we do not believe we have the secret sauce in terms of we can go buy any HVAC business and make them successful. That's not what we know is we have some interesting things behind what we do day in and day out. And if we can get an organization that aligns well with us, we'll go. And Reliable turned out to be a fantastic acquisition for us. Dan Jape Sr., his son, runs the business and has been with us has run the business since July when we bought it. Right? It's been wonderful for us, but it is really important. We've walked away from a couple of deals.
Right.
We looked at a deal in Texas and we ended up walking away because culturally it wasn't a fit. And we knew the effort in might not have gotten what we wanted. So we said, let's spend our time somewhere else.
Looking out, Sean, in terms of the future, what do you see as going to be important? And this may or may not be as a result of this new distributed digital time that is going to influence the future, but more so about what do you think are going to be the trends in aligning both your people to your culture as time goes on, but also attracting new talent to continue to drive this high performance culture that you have at Reliance?
Yeah, that's one of the ones that we constantly are wrestling with and trying to get our heads around. Especially we hire service mechanics, licensed service mechanics, and it really is dynamic. so we spend a lot of time profiling what the characteristics, the behavioral characteristics of certain roles in our organization and how are they successful. So then how do we, when we go out and interview, we can actually parallel behaviors and say, hey, this is an environment for you and this isn't an environment for you. So it's really about hiring for fit, which is critical. I know that during this time, I think organizations that have been fortunate enough to stand behind their team members and take care of them during these tough times will be the ones that step out ready to run. I know we've made some efforts to make sure that we're keeping all our team members gainfully employed to whatever capacity possible. We're making investments to make sure that when this does settle, we're going to be ready to take care of our customers. I think more importantly, as we look into the future, things are changing 100%. We're now actually conducting sales calls via Zoom or Skype or whatever. Like, wow, at a customer's home, right?
Yeah.
Like that's new because in our business, we got to go in and measure, understand square footage, where the house sits, windows, insulation, all that kind of stuff, so we can do the right correct sizing of your heating cooling devices. However, that's forcing us to change. So I think that being flexible is critical. Being able to, and for an old guy like me, it's hard to be flexible, but being flexible with the new world, uh, 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 and what does that hold for us? I think what's really important is some basic stuff, though, right? Is it a place I can get behind? Is my employer a place I'm proud to work at? Have I created an atmosphere of safety, whether it's working from home, working in an office, working in a truck? Is there an opportunity for me to grow personally, professionally? Those things won't change. Those are fundamental things. So whether we're doing a digital world, uh, I'm a 45-year-old person restarting my career. I'm a 20-year-old person getting into my career. Some of the things don't change. They may have different weightings. So I think that our foundationally will stay consistent. Safe place, rewarding place, driven place, comfort, pride, give back to the community, some real basic key things. But we're going to have to be flexible with this. So we had a meeting. We've had meetings the last couple of days actually, and we're talking about when the curtain drops a bit or rises, and we're allowed to start going back to normal, whatever normal is.
Yeah.
How do we do that? How are we, what are our triggers? What are we doing to make sure that we're creating a safe place for our team members, but also keeping in mind that we have 1.9 million customers who trust us to be there when they need it,
For
right? And
sure.
it's a real big balance. So
Now, Sean, you're advising, say, a young entrepreneur or a young leader, uh, younger, I'll say, not just you said old guy, but we're we're pretty much of the same vintage. Um, what would you advise them in terms of if they're really keen on building a high performance culture? What are the things that you would say to them? Look, here's what you need to get focused on.
mm, that's a great question. And I don't know if there's, I think back to my, if I think back to my last 15 years of work, the time here and the time at Granger, um, the I think the thing that bubbles out to me is know what you wanted, know what you want, right?
Right.
Like, well, I know that sounds silly, but if you want to be a growth organization, be a growth organization. If you want to be, if you're going to be a growth organization with higher margins and those, then set yourself up for that. Understand what you want to accomplish. I knew, for example, coming here, if you go back to when we started this, I knew we had a white space. I knew there was a place that Reliance could own. We could get after and win in that marketplace. Uh, so when we developed the culture, right, the us, the team, our investors knew we're going to go after growth. We were going to make bets on growing this business, growing it profitably. And then what it was gastronomic fortitude, right? When people
Right.
put back, you said, no, baby, this is where we're going. And there were some times where it was sort of push lead and follow and pull, but it was I was convinced, I was confident, and I had the experience where when you set out and you know what you want to accomplish, and it was to become this growth organization, right? Not stepping aside from that when tough times came up, when you had your first failure, when things weren't working, right? Stay true to it. And I know it doesn't sound like great advice, but I just share it from an experiential standpoint. I remember it was a funny story. So we'd have our budget meeting with Linda, and in 2013, our marketing budget was $4.5 million. 2013, and for 2014, I took that budget to $7.8 million. Oh gosh, 2 hours we spent in the boardroom with the board convincing them that this investment would pay dividends. The next year we went from 7.8 to 12. We spent about an hour in the boardroom talking about it. The next year we went from 12 and change to just under 15 million in marketing. We spent 30 minutes. Great, Sean, great. And I share that with you because I didn't deviate from what we knew we were going to get after. We celebrated our successes. We aligned our culture to what we were trying to do. We aligned our service to support our message. We worked on customer experience, health and safety, team member engagement, communication, all the real basic things. Put it this way, our marketing budget is $31 million this year.
Unbelievable.
Right? And no questions asked because the results are being delivered, and it's the collective team that's delivering them.
Yeah. Well, here's what I've heard, Sean. Real clarity of purpose is important. Understanding where you were starting from in terms of assessing your culture, assessing all sorts of things, quite frankly, and then having great communication ability and alignment throughout the organization. And I think what came out here in the last little bit of this meeting, and I think it's a personal characteristic you share and you have and share with many people that surround you, and that's grit. The ability to stay kind of resilient and bounce back from when it doesn't happen. And we're all being tested with our grit right now. I certainly am, for sure. And then measuring that progress along and coming back to it. And I think it's who would have thought that in the heating, plumbing, air conditioning, and now other home services businesses, that this would be one of the great success stories that have happened, I would say, in the last 10 years. And I know it's not just you. There's a whole bunch of Reliance Home Comfort team members who've had a huge part to play in that. But thank you again for being our guest today. This is a story that's near and dear to my heart. But it also takes great leadership, and building high performance cultures takes great leaders, not just a leader. And you came and learned from some great leaders, people like Court Carruthers and others. Right. And I know you've paid that forward. And thank you for paying it forward with so many people here today.
Awesome, Marty. Really, really appreciate it. Again, I'm proud of my team. I'm just a cog in a big wheel that I've been fortunate and blessed to be here at the right time and right place. And I will say, just for my colors, proud to be Reliance. So thanks.
Hey, join us. Thanks, Sean. Join us next week for another episode of Building High Performance Cultures. And in the meantime, if you want to learn more about this topic, please visit waterstonehc.com. Thank you.